In 1968, a housewife from Oregon placed a tape recorder next to a bed and changed everything we understood about the human mind. What she recorded over the following decades was not cheap esotericism. It was an impossible pattern. Thousands of strangers, in different countries without ever having met, describing exactly the same thing when they entered the deepest state of hypnosis. Pay attention, because what you are about to hear was not meant to reach your ears by chance. If you are here, it is because something inside you already knew this transmission existed. And if you feel a slight chill on the back of your neck at this very moment, write in the comments, "I feel the calling," because it means the signal has found you, and what comes next will not leave you the same. Eleanor Vance used to say a phrase that frightened her fellow therapists. She said she didn't heal anyone. The true power, according to her, came from the client's own subconscious. She merely facilitated the questions. Think about what that means for you. Inside every person exists a higher intelligence capable of healing, remembering, and guiding. It is not a metaphor. It is not motivational literature. It is what Eleanor documented in more than 4 decades of sessions with ordinary people, recorded, transcribed, and archived. And what these people began to say when they entered a deep trance was so coherent, so repetitive, so impossible to explain by coincidence, that she spent the rest of her life trying to understand what was happening there. Imagine the scene: a silent room, a person lying down, breathing slowly, eyelids flickering slightly. The voice begins to change. It becomes deeper, slower, older. The conscious mind has relaxed, and something deeper begins to speak. This something does not speak the way the client speaks in daily life. This something describes places the person has never visited, beings they have never seen, realities that do not belong to this life. And here is where everything starts to get unsettling, because what these voices say repeats itself, session after session, year after year, continent after continent. Eleanor Vance was born in Portland, Oregon, in 1931. She was a military wife, a mother of 4, an absolutely ordinary woman in an absolutely ordinary life. She began studying hypnosis in a practical, almost domestic way, as a hobby. She was not a guru. She was not a mystic. She was a curious woman with a tape recorder and a desire to understand. And then it happened. In a hypnosis session to stop smoking, a client began to speak as someone else. She described a life that was not her own. Historical details, names, locations. Eleanor was not prepared for that. But instead of closing the door, she opened it wider, and what she discovered in the following years would change the way she viewed the universe. That was how QSH was born, Quantum Soul Hypnosis, a technique that takes the client to a deep somnambulistic state, the deepest level of hypnosis, where the brain operates at very rare frequencies, where the ego falls asleep and the subconscious takes the microphone. In this state, according to Eleanor's records, past lives emerge spontaneously. Coherent spiritual information arises. The subconscious answers questions with a wisdom that the client, when awake, would never have. And in many cases, according to her archives, something occurs that she called healing. Chronic pain disappearing, emotional conditions dissolving, profound liberations. Eleanor never promised healing. She only observed. And what she observed was documented in books that became global references: The Seer of Provence, The Master and the Silent Brothers, Between Death and Life, The Guardians, The Enfolded Universe, The 3 Waves of Volunteers, The New Earth. If you recognize in yourself an ancient feeling of not belonging to this place, comment now, "I feel the calling." It is not a catchy phrase, it is a marking. You are telling your own subconscious that you heard, that the signal was received, and that you are willing to listen to the rest of this transmission without the filter of skepticism you were taught to use. Now listen carefully, because this is where things get strange. In hundreds of sessions spread across decades with people who had never read a book by Eleanor, who had never heard of her, who came from completely different cultures, the same vision began to repeat. A piece of advice from luminous beings observing the Earth seen from afar, like a small blue planet suspended in space, and a crisis caused, according to these voices, by the use of atomic energy by human beings. The accounts described that something had torn not just the physical world but more subtle planes. Something had wounded the web, and these beings could not intervene directly. Why? Because of the law of free will. They could not come down and fix it. They could not make decisions for humans, but they could do something else. They could ask for volunteers. And this is where Eleanor Vance's entire cosmology reorganizes itself. Souls. Souls coming from other planets, from other dimensions, from other densities, who agreed to incarnate here. Not as visitors, not as observers, as ordinary humans, being born of human mothers, in human bodies with all memory of the mission erased at birth. The purpose? To raise the frequency of the planet from within, to be a seed of light in a dense world, to plant consciousness in a soil that had forgotten how to germinate. And perhaps you are feeling a strange vibration in your chest right now. Perhaps something in you is saying that this is not new information, that this is a memory. Wait. Before continuing, I need to tell you something that few people say out loud. Understanding Eleanor Vance theoretically is not enough. You can watch 20 videos like this. You can read all her books. You can memorize the 3 waves. And even then, stay stuck. Why? Because knowing you are a volunteer does not change the fact that your energetic field was built by decades of scarcity programming. You may have come from a luminous source, but if you are vibrating at the frequency of lack, of doubt, of, do I deserve this? The signal does not arrive. The mission stays dormant, and then you spend years manifesting, visualizing, repeating affirmations, and your bank account remains exactly the same. You feel that the universe has abandoned you, but the universe has not abandoned you. Your field is leaking, and that is exactly what needs to be repaired before anything else. You have been manifesting for years, and stay in the same financial state. The problem isn't the universe, it's your leaking field. The prosperity magnet reprograms this in 28 days, or you admit it was just an excuse. The prosperity magnet is the complete field reprogramming system that takes exactly that hole and closes it. It consists of 28 days of guided immersion, with theta state audios, practical coherence exercises, and a closed community of people who understood that reading Eleanor Vance without applying it is just spiritual entertainment. One of the students, whom I will call Sarah, spent 15 years reading about the law of attraction and never had more than $600 in savings. In 28 days following the protocol, she broke through a ceiling that seemed eternal. What years of theory do not give you, structured initiation delivers. Spots are limited because the monitoring is direct. There is a 7-day guarantee, no questions asked. The link to join is in the first pinned comment of this video. But first, let me show you what comes next, because the next revelation is the part no one told you about the waves. Those who understand the mission without understanding the field remain trapped. And that is why Eleanor, in the last years of her life, said that many volunteers were failing not for lack of purpose, but for lack of energetic repair. The instrument was out of tune, the frequency was low, the vessel was cracked, and here is the part that truly moves you. Before we continue, right now in the comments I receive the memory. Do not skip this part. This comment is a seal. You are authorizing your subconscious to recover what was erased at birth. You are not asking for anything external. You are opening an internal door. And whoever watches until the end without doing this will feel the video end and nothing happen. Those who do will feel what Eleanor called recognition, that specific vibration that runs through the body when an ancient truth returns. Now about the 3 waves. Eleanor documented that the volunteers did not all come at once. They arrived in distinct waves with distinct missions, with distinct characteristics. The first wave came after the 40s and 50s, right after the impact of the atomic bombs. They were extremely sensitive souls, empathetic to a painful level, who always felt out of place, who always felt a deep desire to go home without ever knowing what that meant. Their mission was brutal, to clear the way, to sustain the most difficult frequencies. They were the pioneers, the ones who would pay the highest price, the ones who would often end up in deep depression, because the contrast between what they remembered inside and what they saw outside was unbearable. The second wave arrived between the 60s and 80s. They were the healers, the teachers, the caregivers, the artists, the therapists. quieter lives, less painful than the first wave, but no less important. Their mission did not require them to speak loudly. It was enough that they existed. It was enough that they radiated frequency. It was enough that they were in the right places, transforming the environment just with their presence, without anyone noticing what was happening. The third wave began to arrive in the late 80s and continues to arrive. They are the ones who refuse old systems without even fully understanding why. Those who process information at a speed that frightens their parents. Those who do not tolerate obsolete structures, arbitrary hierarchies, or senseless rules. Their mission is to build the new Earth. They did not come to adapt. They came to rebuild. And here is the most painful part. All volunteers from all three waves lose their memory upon birth. They enter through the normal door, through the womb, through birth, through ordinary human childhood. And in that process, everything is erased. But the forgetting is not total. Traces remain. Symptoms remain. Have you ever felt as if you were living the wrong life, in the wrong body, in the wrong family, on the wrong planet? Have you ever felt a loneliness so deep that it had nothing to do with being physically alone? A soul loneliness, a sense of exile that no one around you seemed to understand. Have you ever had, in the middle of the night before falling asleep, that sensation of vibration in your entire body, a ringing in your ears, an inexplicable certainty that something was about to happen? Have you ever felt an invisible presence at critical moments in your life, a guidance that came from a place you couldn't locate? Have you ever put effort into everything considered normal and never received the response others received effortlessly, as if the rules of this world didn't fully apply to you? If you recognized at least 3 of these experiences, then the possibility of you being one of the volunteers stops being a theory and becomes a serious hypothesis. The extreme sensitivity that always bothered you, it was part of the design, the difficulty of fitting in. It was part of the map. The deep loneliness that no one understood. It was the longing for a place you were still trying to remember. And recognition, according to Eleanor, is the beginning of remembering. It is not the end. It is the first stone on the path back. And now I need to talk about something few channels have the courage to touch. They did not classify this material publicly, but they chose not to amplify it. For decades, they hoped you would never find this pattern. Those who profit from your fear need you to believe you are just a lost, defective, displaced person. They need you to numb yourself with products, distractions, comparisons, and anxiety. The system that needs you asleep cannot allow you to recognize yourself as a volunteer, because a volunteer who wakes up stops consuming what kept them asleep. And that is why this transmission found you now. It wasn't an algorithm. It was convergence, and now it's your turn. Eleanor called this the New Earth. Not as fiction, but as a real dimensional transition, the Earth raising its frequency. And within this transition, according to her records, there are 2 realities coexisting. The old Earth, with its fear, control, manipulation, constant conflict, and programmed scarcity. And the new Earth, with its expansion, elevated consciousness, presence, and inner peace. The question she always asked was simple and unsettling. In which of the 2 are you choosing to live today now, at this instant? Because the reality you experience depends on your vibration and your focus of consciousness. You are not stuck in just one. You transition between them all the time without realizing it. And the body knows. The body is adjusting. Have you noticed sleep changes that don't make sense waking up at 3 in the morning for no apparent reason? Have you become sensitive to certain foods you used to consume without problem, sensitive to heavy environments, sensitive to people with dense energy? Have you felt ringing in your ears, especially on the right side? Do you have the feeling that time is accelerating, that weeks pass in hours? Do you have episodes of inexplicable fatigue, where the body simply shuts down even after sleeping 8 hours? Is your memory fluctuating, forgetting simple words and remembering details of ancient things? All of this, according to Eleanor's cosmology, is the body trying to adapt to a higher frequency. It is not a disease, it is a readjustment. The instrument is being retuned. Vance's archives go far beyond the waves. She documented sessions where clients accessed the Prophet of Provence directly, describing the man behind the prophecies. She documented sessions where clients described lives as the silent brothers, living alongside the great teacher in spiritual communities with practices that have been lost. She documented an impressive session where a client relived, in precise detail, the exact moment of the explosion at the Bikini Atoll. She documented contacts with the Guardians, intelligences she spent years questioning about the nature of the universe and who revealed an enfolded cosmos with parallel realities, nested dimensions, a cosmic DNA that is not just biological, and a soul technology that makes ours look like a toy. All of this is in books. All of this can be checked. It is not my claim. It is her archive. And she always returned to the same question at the end of her life. If thousands of people, without knowing each other, describe exactly the same things in a deep state, what is the explanation? 3 possibilities, she said. 1, the information is real and comes from a cosmic field of consciousness to which everyone has access when the ego is silent. 2, it is content from the collective unconscious, in the most radical sense possible, a shared memory of the species. 3, the technique somehow suggests or models the answers. Eleanor never claimed to have the definitive answer, but she said that regardless of the explanation, the pattern deserved serious investigation. Not contempt, not blind faith. Investigation. And perhaps the most important investigation is the one you do inside yourself right now. Because if this transmission resonated, if you felt a chill at some point, if something in you recognized what was being said before your reasoning understood, then the hypothesis that you are part of one of the waves stops being entertainment. It becomes a clue. It becomes an invitation. It becomes a responsibility. Your strangeness was never a defect. Your sensitivity was never a weakness. Your difficulty fitting in was never a sign of inadequacy. All of that was part of the project. All of that was the equipment you brought to fulfill what you came to do. And the problem was never the equipment. The problem was the forgetting, and the forgetting begins to undo itself at the exact moment you recognize yourself. You are not here by accident. You are not simply a lost person trying to survive another day. Perhaps you are a volunteer remembering the mission, and the loneliness you felt your whole life was perhaps not a sign that you were out of place, but a sign that you came from a place you were still trying to remember. Eleanor Vance died in 2014, but her work continues to be practiced by certified QSH therapists in more than 50 countries. And perhaps she didn't just collect stories. Perhaps she recorded, without realizing it at first, the collective awakening of souls who came on a mission. Each session was a piece, each client was a witness, and you, listening now, perhaps are the next piece of the same pattern. Before this transmission ends, I need to return to one thing. Recognizing the mission is the beginning, but executing the mission requires a clean field, and that is why so many volunteers stay stuck. They recognize themselves, they feel the call, they read all the books, and yet they remain in scarcity, in confusion, in effort without return. Recognition opens the door, but crossing the door requires field repair. The Prosperity Magnet exists exactly for that. It is not a manifestation course. It is frequency reprogramming in 28 days. The link is in the first pinned comment. For those who are ready, now comment right now before closing this video. Write, "I remember who I am." 5 simple words, 5 words of power, and this is your final marking, the seal of what was activated in this transmission. Whoever comments is authorizing their own subconscious to continue the work that began here. The moment you recognize what you carry inside is the moment the mission stops sleeping and begins to act through you.